This whole speech was about the elites. And the theme of this year's conference is basically to remind the elites and the world leaders that they need to focus on rebuilding their commitments to the World Economic Forum and the global agenda.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken.
Are you starting it?
Oh, yeah, I am. Okay, hi everybody. Happy Friday. Wow, you were checked out on Wednesday. I'm checked out today. All right, let's try this again. So, we're talking today about the World Economic Forum, which has been in full swing in Davos for the week. And we're just going to give you a rundown on some of what we consider to be highlights so far. And I don't know that highlights is really the appropriate word to use, because as we mentioned on Wednesday, the theme of this world, Jesus. Okay. I clearly got an issue. The theme of this year's World Economic Forum is rebuilding trust. And also this year, for the very first time, the World Economic Forum has published something called the Global Cooperation Barometer. And apparently, according to their website, the Global Cooperation Barometer uses 42 indicators to measure 5 pillars of global cooperation. And they looked at the years between 2012 and 2022, examining the areas of trade and capital, innovation and technology, climate and natural capacity, health and wellness, and peace and security. And so the results of this barometer indicated that during the past 3 years, there have been, quote, reversals in global health cooperation and sharp increases in violent conflict escalating worldwide, end quote, which is obviously resulting in a decline in the barometer's health and wellness and peace and security pillars. We all know COVID didn't have the outcome they wanted because people started going against the narrative and not complying. And now everyone's polarized with the ongoing war in Ukraine and conflicts in Israel and the Middle East, and economies around the world are turning to shit, and there's just a lot of upheaval and unrest. So their one world government plan hasn't been going as smoothly as they'd like it to because they haven't achieved mass compliance yet. And I emphasize the word yet. So what a beautiful opportunity this is with the whole rebuilding trust theme, right? Let's make the public think that they want to reestablish trust. But the real question is, who does this theme actually apply to? And the answer is in Klaus Schwab's opening remarks, where he basically announced that he has appointed himself and the WEF elites to be, quote, trustees of the future. So I would play a clip of his speech, but his German accent is so thick that I find it difficult to understand. So I'm just going to throw out some of the key comments that he made in his welcoming remarks. And I want you guys to listen to the language that he uses here. So he said, quote, we have to rebuild trust in our future, trust in our capacity to overcome challenges, and most importantly, trust in each other. We must rediscover and embrace the narrative that has driven humanity since its inception, acting as trustees for a better future. As trustees of the future, we are responsible for advancing a world that is richer in possibilities, more equitable in opportunities, and more secure in its foundations. Moreover, as leaders in government, business, and society, we bear a particular responsibility to rebuild trust in how we assume our own roles as trustees. Trust is a fundamental pillar of our social, economic, and political lives. It is vital for cooperation, social cohesion, and effective functioning institutions. To rebuild trust, there's a fundamental need to embody trusteeship, which means to care for the greater good. Let's use this annual meeting to rebuild trust by exercising our trusteeship individually and collectively for safeguarding the future of humanity. So, Stephanie, I have to give credit to an article I read in The Sociable because the author, Tim Hinchliff, was thinking exactly what I was thinking, and he was totally on point with his assessment of Schwab's speech. Because notice how he never once mentioned anything about rebuilding trust with private citizens, right? This whole speech was about the elites. And the theme of this year's conference is basically to remind the elites and the world leaders that they need to focus on rebuilding their commitments to the World Economic Forum and the global agenda. And how do they do this? By becoming trustees for the rest of us, acting as stewards over our economic, social, and political welfare. And as Hinchcliffe wrote, he said, quote, Schwab's brief speech is a continuation of the unelected globalist Great Reset agenda, coupled with the Great Narrative Initiative meant to dictate how society and the global economy is run from the top down by a group of unelected, self-appointed trustees who care for the greater good by safeguarding the future of humanity and nature, end quote. Like, how much more in your face can they get with this agenda?
And how many more times can they say trust? I felt like it was a
Trust.
Kamala Harris speech. It's like, to trust, you must trust the trustees of the trust who are like, it's so ridiculous. But yeah, this whole thing, it just feels like a dystopian movie where the evil villains are plotting on how they're going to take over the world. And when they say they need to rebuild trust, they're admitting that they've lost control over the people and the people are starting to wake up to the bullshit and push back. That's what I think. And when they say rediscover and embrace the narrative that has driven humanity since its inception, what the hell does that mean? It sounds like they think that they're gods that are controlling us humans, with some fake narrative. Like, what the hell do they mean by that? And then they say trust is vital for cooperation. And to me, like, it's just so crystal clear that we're all the sheep and we're starting to stray. So they need to get control of the herd again. And again, like, this isn't just some small group. Like, every world leader attends this. The leaders in government, tech, social media, AI, commerce, and everything in between are in attendance. So this is a big deal and it's really concerning.
Yeah, it is really concerning. And in that frame of mind, I want to talk about the opening speech from the Swiss president, Viola Amherd, because I don't buy what she said. So it was reported by Swiss Info in her speech. Amherd was basically like trying to appeal to global leaders to restore the trust that has been lost in their communities. And she said, quote, parts of the population distrust all of us who are gathered here. Everyone must prevent power politics from destroying the foundations of life. Many of you in this room have the opportunity to strengthen cohesion and social balance in your companies. When the supposed elite celebrate themselves as a detached caste, while many families can barely make ends meet, mistrust grows. Those who command should deliver. Switzerland is doing this by working to build new trust. For example, through its traditional diplomatic, quote, good offices, or as a member of the UN Security Council, Switzerland wants to contribute to finding solutions, end quote. So it sounds nice, right? I mean, at least she mentioned communities in her speech and she talked about struggling families. But Stephanie, anytime someone emphasizes their role in the UN as being something positive, like I'm just not on board and I don't buy her speech. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't believe a word she says. And listening to you, like, reading it, it just made me feel like she's the teacher, kind of like reprimanding them. Like, you're showing your cards and they can see it. So start to like blend in again and, play the role kind of thing. That's the vibe that I'm getting. But they have gotten us into this situation where we're all divided and people don't have enough money to live comfortably. And the answer is not the UN. The answer is to cut the DEI bullshit, the climate agenda crap, the censorship, and the senseless wars. But of course, they're not going to cut any of that because those are the core principles that they're founded on. And speaking of senseless wars, Zelensky was in Davos. No surprise there. And he's making his usual demands. So he told reporters that Ukraine will continue to fight, but without more financial assistance, there will be a war between NATO and Russia. That's what he's telling people. Like, can you believe that this guy is just like unreal? And in my opinion, this war needs to be done ASAP. No more money, cut him off. We have our own problems to worry about here. And the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, was there as well, which I'm starting to think that he's actually the one in charge of our country because he seems to be the only one showing up and trying to do anything. But anyhow, he was saying that in order for Israel to have genuine security, there must be a pathway to a Palestinian state. And we've talked about this in depth on a previous episode, but they have tried this numerous times over the past few decades, and Palestinians have never agreed to sit down and negotiate. And, the last one was like where Israel gave them Gaza, and clearly we could see what good that did. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister was also there, and he said, quote, "Today we are witnessing genocide in Gaza and the West Bank. This means the war is ongoing, so there is a possibility of extension." And him and Blinken did not meet there, as far as I know. But what I take from this is that they're not going to back down, and this is going to be a long, drawn-out war, another long, drawn-out war. The only thing that's giving me hope is that Blinken's remarks is making it sound like possibly the U.S. realizes we can't get in the middle of it, and we really can't. Like, we need to focus on America first, and we don't want an all-out war with Iran, especially considering how many people are illegally in the United States right now. And I'm just hoping that Blinken and the Democrats are smart enough to realize that continuing to support this like ongoing bombing of Gaza means that most of their party and the extreme left isn't going to vote for them in 2024. So that's like the only hope it gives me that maybe we won't get ourselves involved in another war in 2024. Like, we just need to stay out of it.
Well, if we don't, I'm sure something will come from the China-Taiwan situation or,
Yeah,
North
I'm
Korea.
sure.
There's going to be something, right? There'll be something. But moving on to the AI front. So, Futurism reported that there was a survey conducted at the World Economic Forum on Tuesday. And in that survey, 25% of CEOs who are attending this year have said that they're planning to cut their human workforce by at least 5% and fill those roles with AI. And the article also quoted the International Monetary Fund chief, Christina Georgieva, as saying, quote, "In most scenarios, AI will likely worsen overall inequality, a troubling trend that policymakers must proactively address to prevent technology from further stoking social tensions," end quote. I mean, I think it's a little bit too late for that at this point, don't you?
Yeah. And isn't it aggravating that they've spent the past 3 years focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion only so that some artificial intelligence can take over everyone's jobs? Like, honestly, I'm really surprised that AI is barely being talked about in the media or the government. Like, this is going to change our world so rapidly and so substantially. I don't think that most of us can even fathom what's to come. And yet there seems to be virtually no safeguards in place. And like, think about how much we've advanced just in the past, 30 years, like with the internet compared to all of previous history. And with AI, it's going to advance like at least 1,000 times faster than that, probably more. And I don't think we can even comprehend all of the changes that are to come. And I sure as hell don't trust the people at the World Economic Forum to do what's ethically right. So let's listen to the devil himself, Bill Gates, and see what he has to say about it.
In terms of making it cheaper, faster, more accurate, I found it's a real productivity increase. Likewise for coders, you're seeing 40, 50% productivity improvement, which means you can get programs sooner, you can make them higher quality, make them better. So mostly what we'll see is that the productivity of white collar will go up. AI can be used for cyber attacks. It can be used to design a bioterrorism weapon. So far, every technology we've come up with, we've managed to keep them under control. And so the idea that there's a lot of talk getting government people to understand AI, could it be something where it's almost too addictive to sit there and talk to it? What should the guidelines be? AI makes it easier to generate information. It underscores the need to say, okay, what's the good part of social media and what's the part either for young people or misinformation that regulations could reduce?
I love how he like chuckles when he says, "Oh, it could be used as a bioterrorism weapon." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Bill Gates, we know you're probably making a weapon as we speak. He's so evil. But you know what I noticed in watching a ton of CEOs talk to the reporters at Davos is every single time that AI was brought up, they would somehow shift the conversation to social media and how it's out of control and needs to be regulated. which is basically just saying that we need more censorship. And I mean, I just saw that time. And again, I think that was the overarching message. And he said it at the end of that. He somehow shifted it to social media. So I think that behind closed doors, they're all trying to see how they can censor us even more and how they're probably going to use AI to do that. Speaking of which, Fox News just published an article titled Feds Asked Banks to Search Private Transactions for Terms like MAGA and Trump. And one bank allegedly handed over information to the FBI voluntarily and without any legal process. So they're already going after the right, which we know. But I think that this whole meeting in Davos is leading me to believe that they're going to use AI to target people on social media that don't go along with their narrative. And that is a scary thought. And what's even scarier is that OpenAI has just changed its policy, making it no longer against policy to use OpenAI for military and warfare. Like, can you believe this shit? So
That's frightening.
yeah. And so The Intercept reported on this, and they said that this new company policy change took place January 10th, which, by the way, it was completely like quiet. They didn't announce it or anything. People just happened to come across this change, and it completely removed previous language that banned activity that has high risk of physical harm, including specific examples of weapons development and military and warfare. And I would just love to know what made them think that this would be a good idea. Like, absolutely frightening.
Yeah, because it all plays into how they're going to use AI to complete their agenda and destroy the world as we know it. Because there's also the issue of how AI is going to impact the outcome of multiple important elections taking place across the world this year. And we talked about this on Wednesday. There are over 50 countries that are having elections in 2024. And one of the key themes for this year's World Economic Forum is focused on the misinformation and disinformation concepts. And I was reading an article in Cyber News that talked about how right before this year's meeting started, the WEF released their Global Risks Report 2024. And one of their top 10 risks over the next 2 years was identified as AI-derived misinformation and disinformation and its implications for polarizing society. And the article also mentioned that these 50 countries who are having elections this year represent 60% of the global GDP. So the impact of these elections could be game changers for the entire world, depending on the outcomes. And the WEF report states, quote, the widespread use of misinformation and disinformation and the tools to disseminate it, referring to AI, may undermine the legitimacy of newly elected governments. Resulting unrest could range from violent protest and hate crimes to civil confrontation and terrorism. Perceptions of reality are likely to become polarized, infiltrating the public discourse on issues ranging from public health to social justice. As the truth is undermined, the risk of domestic propaganda and censorship will also rise in turn, end quote. And then the report later states, quote, some governments and platforms may fail to act effectively to curb falsified information and harmful content, making the definition of truth increasingly contentious across societies, end quote. Stephanie, like they are basically laying out the plan for 2024. We're going to see hate crimes, terrorism, election fraud. We're going to further polarize society, increase propaganda, and increase censorship.
Yeah. I feel like they're basically planning for the backlash when they prevent Trump from becoming president. I think they know there's just going to be a ton of like civil unrest. And they even use the wording civil confrontation. Like they're preparing for a civil war type of reaction because, you know, they're going to do whatever it takes to make sure he isn't president again. And I feel like they're just like flat out saying that and planning for it now. Crazy.
Yeah, and speaking of exactly that, I want to play this clip from Real AF on Wednesday because, as we all know, I always share what Andy Frisella has to say. And maybe you won't think this is related to the World Economic Forum, but it absolutely is because they are telling us how this election is going to go down in America. So listen to this clip.
They're going to cause massive mayhem for the next until Trump's out of the picture 100%. Well, it's funny too because even going back to our intro conversation, I was going to put it in the headlines, but NBC actually just wrote out an article. Yeah, about how they're going to take the military and they're how
Yes.
you're talking about how they're going to they are trying to maintain control of the military over
If Trump gets
if
elected
Trump gets elected. So they are legitimately saying
out loud now.
in the media, NBC is saying that, and they're presenting it as a good thing. They are saying that if Trump gets elected by the people of this country, that there will be a military coup operation to remove him.
We'll link it so you guys have it. I was going to include it, but I was like, I don't know how the flow is going to work. But
Yeah.
dude, it's real shit.
I know.
Like
It's fucking treason, dude. They already did that. They've already done the coup. And now they're trying to say that Trump's doing a coup.
Right.
You know, there was an article also retweeted by Alex Soros that said Brazil survived a coup, talking about Bolsonaro and how we can avoid the same mistakes that, like, bro,
Yeah.
These people are fucking fucks, period. Bolsonaro had 10 million people in the fucking streets, bro. Luna had 0. Nobody voted for him. They cheated. And until the people of the world rise up and understand that unity is the only thing that's going to stop this from happening, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop pressing. They're not going to stop cheating. There is a fundamental difference of the game that we are playing between these communist people and everybody else. Everybody else, all the common sense people, like they are like, this will all work out. Something will happen. It'll all be good. And then you have the other side that's like literally standing on our fucking throats, waiting for us to die. They don't give a fuck. They are not going to relent. They are not going to stop. They are going to cheat in front of your fucking face and then dare you to do something about it. And until the other side, the common people of the world who think logically and have common sense come together and say, we're not going to fucking tolerate this, they're going to continue to do that. There's a fundamental difference between the game. It would be like, it would be like this. It would be like if I went out on the football field with fucking 7 guys and we went out and on the football field was the University of Alabama. And we're all like, yeah, they're not going to hit us. They're not going to fucking hit us. And then they fucking crush us, bro, and they break our backs. That's what we're dealing with. And by the way, we're the fucking guys on the field being like, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. When they have consistently shown that they will do that. And so, dude, the common pro-freedom, common sense community of this country and all the countries in the world needs to come to their senses of what they are dealing with in the game that they are playing. They will crush you. They will kill you. They will ruin your life. They will take everything from you. And they are not going to stop until they get their way. And until people understand that and start playing the appropriate game, they will continue to lose. That's reality.
Dude, that's the thing. That's the problem. We play by the rules and they don't.
That's correct. We're playing a different game than they are playing. And they are playing the game of we will do whatever we fucking got to do. And we're playing the game of we're morally better and we'll take the high road and it'll all work out because God loves us. Yeah. God doesn't reward people who sit on their ass. Okay? God rewards people who do shit. All right? That's it. There's nobody that ever won a conflict because they're better people. That's not how fucking conflicts are won. Conflicts are not won. Business is not won because you're a good person. They're won because people take action and they execute. And right now, the communists of the world, the globalists of the world, they are executing, they're taking action, and they don't give a fuck if you notice, and they will take everything from you if you fucking let them. And that's where we're at. We're playing a different game than they're playing.
It was a little long, but I wanted to play that whole thing because what he says is like absolutely accurate. And like that whole thing with taking over the military if Trump wins, like, is that fucking scary or what?
It is scary. And it's just like Leave the World Behind, a military coup. And then like the Civil War movie that's coming out. It's really scary. And I've heard a lot of people speculating about SpaceX, which Trump formed, and how that's basically like his military, like they are not serving Biden. And I don't know if any of that's true or not, but I just hope that there's some good people, in there. But I think what Andy's saying too is like, we all just assume someone else is going to take care of it. Someone else is going to protect us and come along and save us when no one's coming to save us. Like we all have to stand up ourselves. No one's going to fix this for us.
Yeah, and that's why this year, as we said on Wednesday, and I'm sure I'll repeat multiple times throughout the year, this is the most critical year for not only our country, but for so many countries in the world. And they're literally sitting there in the World Economic Forum right now, planning our demise. And
Mhm.
so if this isn't disturbing enough, I also want to mention Disease X, which is how the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization are referring to the next pandemic. So the WHO director, Tedros Ghebreyesus, gave a seminar on Disease X at the WEF on Wednesday and was saying that like this disease could kill 20 times more people than COVID-19. And even though this is still a mystery disease, supposedly, the Daily Caller reported yesterday that scientists in China have just developed a mutant strain of COVID-19 that kills 100% of lab mice that it's tested on. And reportedly, it can easily spread to humans. So why? Why are they doing this? I want to play a clip from Alex Jones. And he released this on X a couple days before the World Economic Forum started. It's kind of a long clip and it's Alex Jones. So he kind of goes off on some tangents. But I think what he says is like totally accurate. If I can get it to play. Hang on.
Oh, come on, Alex Jones.
Rainbow's group starts meeting in just a couple days. They've already got their operation going on a mountaintop. So their staff and crew and people are already getting there in Switzerland. But they are the official mouthpiece of the UN, and last year officially merged with the UN at a National Security Council level. They're not on the National Security Council, but the UN Secretary General said policy will be decided on with them. And remember what Klaus Schwab says, we penetrate half the cabinets. We control half the governments of the world. And what is front and center on their agenda? Number one, they say disease X is imminent and is going to kill 20 times what COVID supposedly did. And then they give a number of 50 million. Now, what is disease X? That's a name for a disease never existed. And if you talk to the virologists, the experts, they say that's not known for hundreds of years. And most of the diseases that they have recently found, they find later in bodies they dig up, existed before. And it's very rare to find a new disease. So when you hear disease X, they mean the laboratory-made synthetic viruses gain-of-function operations. So now they are in a crescendo with corporate media, the UN, the WEF, Bill Gates, the New World Order saying that the release of a new virus is imminent and is going to happen. Now, they did this just months before they released COVID-19 that was made in a lab, that was 5 viruses combined, that did cause respiratory illnesses if you didn't have enough vitamin D. But they made it synthetic so they could own the vaccine response that they'd already made. And that all came out later. We'll be going over it again tonight. We have experts throughout the week joining us. But the end-to-end scanned it, others scanned it with their billion-dollar CRISPR machines and said back in February of 2020, this was made in a lab. And the media tried to poo-poo it, but later admitted, no, it was made in a lab. Not out of some bat cave or some wet market grocery store where they sell live animals. Didn't come from a turtle or a bat or anything, or a porcupine. So they're running the same propaganda they ran, but even more intensely before they released it last time. And Fauci bragged, Trump will soon be challenged by a novel virus. They said, we're going to blow up the old regulatory system of actually testing things. And once this new virus comes out, he said in 2018 and 19, we will use it to then roll out all these new Franken shots that aren't even classical vaccines that are DNA reprogramming systems. We pointed that out 4 years ago. That's what it was. They said, no, you're lying. Now I've got newscast with the UN, with the WHO saying, yes, we're now going to change your DNA with these new shots. There'll be no approval. We're just going to make you take it. They have legislation introduced to the Congress for, quote, disease X. So when you hear disease X, that means the gain of function, the manipulation of viruses, splicing different families of viruses together, taking viruses that are only in animals and making them where they can jump into humans, making them where they're more airborne, where they're more communicable. There's been very little corporate media coverage of the hearings the last few years of Fauci admitting all of this is going on, trying to deny its gain of function, but saying, yeah, we soup up viruses. Now, I just put an image on screen from the early 1990s. That's real video. If you're a TV viewer, it's a mouse with a giant human ear growing on its back, a third the size of its whole body. Now, that was done in the 70s, declassified in 1990. I've covered that mouse story probably 400 times or more, probably 500 times. The reason that's important is, now listen to me carefully. About to do the deep dive on disease X. They took humanized mice, the US government, the Chinese government, the Australian government, the British government, this is all admitted, put human genes into them so they respond just like humans. So it's like you're testing on a human. Same effect. And have got a 100% kill rate with the viruses they've cooked up. So when you see Bill Gates laughing and smirking and saying, look, if you didn't like COVID, something a lot worse is coming, he, and you'll stay locked down, you'll behave yourself when the new virus comes. We have Klaus Schwab saying this. We have his daughter, who's on the board of the WEF. We've got her saying it. I've got the receipts, overhead shot. You see these 3 stacks right here? Excuse me, 4 stacks? There's his daughter saying it. I got Klaus Schwab saying it too. Right there in that stack. Look at all these other stacks. And guess who else I have? I have undoubtedly the most popular, loved online doctor in the world. He gets hundreds of millions of views a week. And until now, they weren't censoring him. Now they are. They took this video off YouTube. Dr. John Campbell out of the UK. Very respected. And he basically comes out, well, he didn't come out, he came out and said, clearly they're engineering this. Clearly they're releasing it to take control of society. It's all illegal, it's gain of function. And when you hear disease X, they're talking about diseases that don't exist because they are making them. Ladies and gentlemen, and the WF says, prepare, it's imminent. It's all about to happen right as the UN tries to ram through their treaty.
Well,
That's
that's
terrifying.
depressing.
Yeah. And you know what? We need to pay attention because the last time they did this, they told us what was coming and the exact thing they said was going to happen happened. And isn't one of the biggest bio weapon whatever labs in Ukraine? Like I'm pretty sure it is because I remember them
Oh, I don't
saying they
know.
didn't want Russia to get control of that. Could explain why they're putting so much funding into Ukraine, but this is like terrible. I mean, and what are we
Yeah,
gonna do about it? You know?
exactly. And it's just like, it's terrifying. But as we've been saying, like the whole time, they're telling us what's coming. They've laid out the whole plan. They're telling us about everything that's going to happen this year.
Mhm.
And I think people still don't believe it. But anyway, I know this is like a dark podcast because it's very difficult to talk about the World Economic Forum or the UN or the WHO without it being dark. But it's Friday, and I do want to try and end today's episode on a positive note. So this is one of the best stories that I have heard so far to come out of this year's WEF conference. So according to the Daily Caller, Argentina's new president, Javier Milei, he gave a speech at the conference on Wednesday where he completely blasted socialism. And as a little bit of history on this guy, he refers to himself as, quote, an anarchy capitalist. And he won the presidential election in Argentina in last November. He kind of reminds me of Vivek Stephanie in the sense that part of his campaign ran on the promise to eliminate half of the country's government agencies, which I totally love.
Nice.
And he also promised to fix inflation in Argentina by replacing the local currency with the American dollar. No, I'm not sure how smart of an idea that is right now, considering what might happen with BRICS and our dollar. But apparently, the American dollar is a hell of a lot better than what they have now. And the Daily Caller article said that Argentina is currently experiencing its highest rate of inflation in more than 3 decades. Their inflation is at 211%, which is fucking insane. And every 2 out of every 5 Argentinians live in poverty, and the economy just continues to get worse. And so Milei, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize if I'm not, but he has very conservative conservative views on issues like gun control, immigration restrictions, keeping government small, and he's rejecting like feminist policies and elitism, which totally sounds like my kind of president.
Mm-hmm.
So on Wednesday, he gave a speech at the conference, and here's what he said. Quote, "Today I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger, and it is in danger because those who are supposed to have to defend the value of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. Leaders of Western nations have abandoned the model of freedom for different visions of what we call collectivism." End quote. And his message to Argentina was, quote, "Do not surrender to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. You are the true protagonists of this story. And rest assured that as from today, Argentina is your staunch, unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long live freedom, damn it." End quote. Like, is this awesome or what?
I love
To
this
get up
guy.
there, yeah, to get up there at the World Economic Forum and give this speech.
Yeah. The only other person that's ever done that I know of is Trump, which probably means that they're going to try to take him out or, invade his country, which is sad but true. I mean, they don't want someone like this putting out this information. And just like we said on the last episode, I think the fact that he was voted in just further proves that the entire world, not just the US, the entire world is hungry for change and they're tired of the woke nonsense. So good for him. This gives me like hope, and that is a great thing to end this episode on. So tune in next week because we'll have part 2 of the World Economic Forum's 2024 meeting of the almighty elites. And we'll try to gather all the best, highlights, if we can call it that, and takeaways for how these guys are planning on controlling us this year. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you back here Monday. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free Unapologetically Outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.